Legacy makes another hire, RFK has an announcement coming up, and Kyle Busch is headed to the Chili Bowl. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Happy Friday, folks. Catching up on some NASCAR news today. We're not talking about the everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. Let's start with some breaking news this morning. Parker Retzlaff will not return to the Jordan Anderson number 31 Xfinity Series Chevrolet. The 21-year-old says in a statement, "As I close this chapter in my book, I am so grateful to have had such a supportive team behind me." I'd heard a while ago that Retzlaff wouldn't be returning. I have heard one name for the 31 car, someone likely not on anybody's radar. I guess we'll see if what I've heard turns out to be true. As far as Parker Retzlaff is concerned, kid obviously has some potential, some talent. I don't know where he's going from here. You gotta believe he's got some funding. I mean, he was able to make select Cup Series starts this year. I think he has some support, but I'm not sure where he goes next. Most competitive Xfinity Series seats have been picked up at this point. Not to change the subject, but remember the finish to the Daytona Summer Cup race? Parker Retzlaff, driving a Chevrolet, pushed Ford driver Harrison Burton to the win, to a playoff spot over fellow Chevy teammate Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch didn't blame Parker Retzlaff, said Retzlaff wasn't in those Chevy team meetings. And Retzlaff, 21 years old, this is one of his first Cup starts. Who knows if he'll ever get a shot to race inside the top 5 on Sunday ever again. I guess the Cup race was Saturday night, but you get my point. Whether intentional or not, Parker Retzlaff ignored manufacturer orders at Daytona, and now he may or may not have a ride for next season. Will Chevrolet help him out? Was Chevrolet really that upset with how Daytona ended? I think of a recent clip from Hall of Famer Mark Martin that went viral. He does a podcast on the Mark, and he said something recently, thinking back to that Retzlaff Daytona incident.
What the hell is Chevrolet going to do for Retzlaff? Nothing. Manufacturers don't do enough for the drivers to make them give up racing.
Maybe Chevrolet has blackballed Parker Retzlaff. Maybe Mark Martin is exactly right, that Chevrolet never really cared about Parker. They just care about who brings them the most money. Either way, with all the race manipulation, manufacturer orders in the news in recent weeks, the Parker Retzlaff news I thought was interesting. Could maybe tie it back into a discussion around Daytona at the end of the regular season. Maybe I'm way off base. I probably am. Figured I'd at least bring it up. A fun thought exercise. Anyway, let's talk about Ford. RFK Racing has an announcement scheduled for this coming Tuesday. And according to reporter Bob Pockris, there's a representative from Tad Geschechter's company on the list of invitees. That would certainly suggest that Kroger to RFK is happening. A major sponsor move that could allow RFK to open a third full-time team, either buy or lease a third charter. Everyone expects Ryan Preece to join the team. Not sure if he'll be a part of this announcement. Brad Keselowski did tease multiple announcements coming up in the coming weeks, so perhaps we'll have to wait longer to confirm Ryan Preece. But Kroger to RFK, third full-time team, seems to be on the horizon. We've talked Chevy, we've talked Ford, now let's talk Toyota. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Legacy Motor Club has hired another engineer. I guess, after finishing 29th and 35th in the owner's points, I guess internal changes are inevitable. Chad Johnston is now the team's manager of racing engineering. Legacy said in a statement, Johnston will focus on leading Legacy Motor Club's engineering fleet within the competition department led by Brian Campy and Jacob Cantor. Chad Johnston most recently served as Ryan Preece's crew chief at Stewart-Haas Racing. He's an industry veteran, and he is the latest addition to Legacy Motor Club, a team with so much turnover. I had to draw up a chart to try and keep track of it. So if we go back to January, the start of this year, Joey Cohen was still the team's director of competition. Ben Bayshort, Dave Ellens, and Jason Burdett were the team's 3 crew chiefs. The first big move came in July. They hired Bobby Kennedy to serve as general manager. Okay, all right. Shortly thereafter, they announced that Joey Cohen had left the team. Oh, at the end of July, they released the entire number 84 team, including Jason Burdett. A couple weeks after that, they signed Jacob Cantor to take over as competition director. Then they hired Brian Campy, technical director. Around this same time, they brought in a new crew chief for Jimmy Johnson's part-time efforts. Then in October, they parted ways with crew chief Dave Ellens. Ben Bayshore slid over to the 43 for the end of the season, and newly hired Brian Campy was suddenly the 42 crew chief. And now, I don't even know where to put him. We'll just throw it down here. Chad Johnston is now the race engineering manager. Holy moly. So we went from this in January, nice and clean and simple, to this in less than a year. The only name that has stayed the same, I believe, is Ben Bayshore, and he's not even with the same driver he began the year working with. And I probably missed some, honestly. I think there were other moves this year that maybe flew under the radar. I think they hired a new VP of business operations. That doesn't really affect the competition side. Point is, a ton of turnover at Legacy Motor Club. First year with Toyota did not go as well as anyone hoped. I get it. You know what they say. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Something was broke this year. I mentioned their owners' points finishes, 29th and 35th. Yeah, that's terrible. I don't blame them for making changes, trying to fix it. I think Brian Campy is a great hire. Chad Johnston, we'll see. I'll say this about Legacy Motor Club. From the outside, it kind of looks like a circus. Just a little. But they keep hiring industry veterans, so there must be some confidence. Is it simply that everyone believes in Jimmy Johnson, that he'll eventually figure it out? They believe in Maury Gallagher. Man built a championship-winning truck series team. He can figure it out. Cal Wells is there. There are a lot of industry veterans already at Legacy Motor Club. Some of the core is still intact. Maybe that's it. All these veterans, all these industry guys are buying into that group. And as long as that group stays intact, who cares what kind of turnover happens outside the nucleus? They're going to keep trying different combinations, hoping they can get this train back on the track. This train's never really been on the tracks, at least not since they branded Legacy Motor Club. I mean, I didn't even go back to 2023. If I wanted to extend this flowchart to 2023, I mean, Noah Gregson let go, switching from Chevy to Toyota. I mean, there have been so many changes, so much turnover, really the last 2 years. With this team, it's hard to keep track of it all. They're not taking the easy way out. I'll give them that. That's not to suggest what 2311 has done the past few years is easy. It's not. But when they entered the sport, they agreed to a technical alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing. Legacy Motor Club did not do that. They are building their own database. They're attempting to be more independent. Long term, it may work out, but short term, they are not nearly as competitive as their Toyota teammates over here. I'm hoping that year 2 with Toyota, they've got more data. Their simulator is up to date. I think Eric Jones is good. I think John Hunter Nemechek is fast, if a little inconsistent. I'm confident that this team can take a big leap, but with all these changes, I also have a lot of question marks. We still don't know who Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek's crew chiefs next year will be. Brian Campy is just an interim crew chief for John Hunter. That's not his long-term job. And Ben Bayshore, will he stay with Jones? Remains to be seen. So I'm still quietly confident in this team's long-term ability, but in the short term, I still have a ton of question marks. Final story of the week, and it's a fun one. Kyle Busch says he'll race the Chili Bowl in January. It's a collaboration with Lucas Oil and Flow Racing. Busch did a short video this week, sort of teasing back and forth with his son Brexton about Kyle being too scared to attempt the race. He's doing it this year. That's exciting. That's awesome. He'll do a couple other races at Bakersfield Speedway, Ventura Raceway as well later this month, I believe, sort of preparing for January's Chili Bowl Nationals in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A prestigious event. I haven't had the fortune of attending in person. I've watched it on streaming the past few years. I mean, you look at the who's who's won this thing. Recently, Logan Seavey, Tanner Thorson, but before that, it was Kyle Larson winning back-to-back Chili Bowls. It was Christopher Bell winning 3 in a row. The Swindells, I mean, this is a tough race to win. Hundreds of entries, dozens of races and heats to get to the feature. It's a challenging race, but the vibe I'm getting listening to Kyle Busch's comments, the short video he did with his son, Kyle Busch is having fun with this. That's going to be the word of the day. That's the theme. Fun. Obviously, this NASCAR season was not fun for Kyle Busch. It was the first winless season of his NASCAR Cup Series career, missed the playoffs. You could tell he was pressing. He was overstepping, trying to get more out of the car than the car was capable of giving him, led to mistakes, heartbreaking moments, lashing out at times. This was not a fun 38 weeks for Kyle Busch. I think this offseason should be all about fun. Working with his son, seeing his racing career develop, spending time with his family, trying something different. Kyle Busch isn't a dirt racer by trade. This is something he's tried to adapt later in his career. Yes, he's got a Bristol dirt race win on his resume, but he's not a dirt racer. As the saying goes, racers race. Kyle Busch is a race car driver. It's cool to see him step out of his comfort zone and have fun with a new discipline. I don't know how Kyle Busch will perform at the Chili Bowl. It's going to be tough, but bigger picture, I hope this is a palate cleanser for him, a reset, mentally, physically, emotionally. I hope this is a cathartic experience so that when Daytona rolls around in February and he gets back into the NASCAR Cup Series grind, he's ready to hit the ground running. In 2023, Kyle Busch hit the ground running fast with RCR, winning 3 races in the first half of the season. Even in 2024, first few weeks, Kyle Busch looked fast. They just had pit road issues and other variables, but they had the speed. Can they keep that momentum for weeks, months later into the season? Can they break through and win once again? I hope the Chili Bowl is a palate cleanser, a reset. Kyle Busch can have some fun this offseason and feel refreshed heading into year 3 with Richard Childress Racing. I'll be rooting for Kyle Busch. It'll be fun to see a future NASCAR Hall of Famer, a racing superstar. It'll be fun to see him try something different, and maybe he'll surprise us and make a deep run. The Chili Bowl Nationals are mid-January, I believe, 13th through the 18th, I think. So mark your calendars if you want to check it out. Good luck to Kyle Busch. That'll do it for this episode, folks. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NASCAR discussion all year long, even during the off season. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Really appreciate your generous support. Helps keep the show growing. Have a great rest of your week. I will talk to y'all again soon. Take care.